Hi, we're Ian and Tom, and welcome to the Honest Designers Show. That was terrible. Guys, it's a bit of a different intro this week because I'm sat next to Ian.
Yes.
So this is a new recording experience for anyone. For anyone who's watching the video on YouTube instead of listening to the podcast. We are in this weird-looking hotel room. It's incredibly small, so we're sat on a bed together. So I don't know what our better halves are going to think when they see this. We've got a weird purple light behind us. It's tiny. There's more bed space than floor space.
It's a nice hotel room. It's just a spacey.
It's lovely. And big props to Birmingham Design Festival for putting us up. That's why we're here. We're doing a workshop tomorrow. But yeah, this is going to be a different recording experience. Who knows what havoc it's going to wreak upon the dynamic.
If we start speaking over each other, we might get into a fight.
A pillow fight.
Yeah.
As we're on the bed.
That'd be good to watch.
But we are, of course, also here with American retro design expert Dustin Lee and the incredibly delightful illustrator Lisa Glantz. What are we talking about today, guys? We are talking about pushing outside your comfort zone. Is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
Sweet. So, what do we think? Because I'm feeling pretty outside my comfort zone right now, Ian.
Yes. Or we hit quite close to home, and that's the reason why we're wearing these speaker badges. You're doing, or I'm doing workshop, Procreate workshop.
Yeah.
You're doing a marketing for creative workshop, which I'm sort of...
Which is joint. We're doing Q&A together at the end of that.
Yeah. So...
Oh, that's cool.
And you're sitting in a hotel room that looks like it's from a sci-fi movie that looks super small, awkwardly close to one another, and I can only guess that it smells like man in there.
It will do by the end of the recording.
Just keep your hands where I can see it, mate. So yeah, I'm already enjoying this dynamic. I think this more power to the idea of getting the four of us together. We need a little panel. If anything, the four of us in a bed. That should just be the show. We'll just get tucked in.
That would be like, we would be so like awkward because we wouldn't be looking into screens. We'd be looking at each other. So that would be.
I don't know if I could look at you guys if we were in a bed together. I think I'd have to like stare at the ceiling and like pretend I was in my safe place.
Shotgun big spoon.
I could just picture you going into your safe place.
Just rocking in despair. Okay, so comfort zone. The reason we're talking about this is actually, Lisa mentioned it because of the workshop we're doing tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really humbled to be doing it. It's the next logical step career-wise. But I'm terrified, and I posted about this on my personal Instagram. But public speaking for a long time has been my biggest fear in the world. To the point I get sweaty and shaky, my hands shake. I fumble over my words, and it's really weird because I can talk like this, no problem. I do live Q&A on my my own podcast all the time. If we're down the pub or in a group setting or with my team, I can talk for England. But as soon as it's not a dialogue and it's just you speaking to silence and all eyes boring into your soul, something about it just gets me. And the reason I was talking about this is I really believe that confidence lies the other side of fear and doing what scares you. And that's always been true in my life. So, for example, I used to be in a band locally. And on our first ever gig, it was tiny. It was in a little local pub. There was probably 20 people there. Out of those 20, 17 of them were our close friends. So supporting us. It wasn't exactly playing Wembley Arena. And I was still so nervous that my hand shook so much I could barely play a note. And I kept hitting bum notes and it was a horrible experience. But when we started doing 3 gigs a week, by the end of doing that for a year or two, I was really comfortable doing it. And I didn't really get the nerves. And we ended up playing to about 300 people, which is still not huge numbers. But, I never could have done that at the start. And it got there in the end. And there's so many things in life where I've experienced that, where it's gone from abject terror to actually being really comfortable. And even the four of us doing this show, I was really nervous to start putting my voice out there. We all had that initial thing of I hate the sound of my voice. This is so uncomfortable. And now we just jump on and do this. I'm sat on bed with Ian, for God's sake. And it's,
Really
it's nothing, right? Yeah, exactly. Imagine this in the first meeting. So I guess my first question would be, do you guys agree with that whole ethos of like leaning into the fear? This is very like motivational speaker, isn't it? Lean into the fear and do it anyway. Do you believe in that? Have you experienced that? What have you experienced that with in your lives?
I've definitely, I can relate to that because yesterday we did a webinar, and webinars always scared me. I remember when I worked for my first online business, and I was just terrified to do an online webinar. I mean, all these people are watching you. It's kind of like talking in front of people because they can only type back, they can't respond back. You feel like, why are people watching me? And so we just did one yesterday that we charged for, and it was horrifying because just a couple months ago we did one and it kicked me off. People were paying for it and it kicked me off, and I was gone. I couldn't get back on for 30 minutes while people just sat there. It was brutal. But as I've done it more, like, you just start to plan for the future more, you get more confident. So, I mean, it's been great because it's really beneficial.
Yeah, it's definitely that thing of like your first time you do it, you see it as a massive mountain, and I think it's because you aiming for the end. I mean, Tom, when you first started, you were doing your phone, you spoke like did your whole Instagram videos, and that first video took you like how long?
Oh yeah,
I
it
mean,
took an hour. It took 100 takes
exactly.
and an hour
Yes,
to do like a
exactly.
30-second video. And I was a wreck by the end. I felt like I'd run a marathon.
And it's so weird because like you're not talking to anyone, and you the one who's controlling like what you're putting out there. So, but it is that pressure, and so after you've done your first one, you do the second one, the third, the fourth. Before you know it, now you're actually speaking in public and doing a whole workshop. And I mean, that's insane. Like I can't visualize myself where you are because I haven't even done the first step of doing like the Instagram videos.
You'd be a natural though, definitely. Did we
know,
tell you how many people it is tomorrow?
No.
So I don't know why. I'd seen a few videos of workshops, and it was always like a small classroom with like 15 people in it, or maybe 20 people or something. So I was like, okay, great. Like that would be a first toe in the water.
Yeah.
And then I contacted the organisers. I was like, oh, how many is it again? And they're like, oh, well, it's sold out at 100. And so we've got the waiting list, and they're going in now. So we're going to pack in 125 people. So trial by fire.
Yeah, like that. How does that make you feel? Like, aren't you even more petrified?
It makes me feel like a little bit of wee wants to come out.
And then I was okay. Until Tom said, oh, I need to give the organisers my talk on a USB. And I'm like, oh, does that mean I can't run? Because I'm doing a Procreate workshop. I need my iPad connected to the main projector. And if the main projector's like somewhere miles up in the sky, I'm like, oh no, how am I going to show people what they need to do? So we're like, so we're hoping to bump into them tonight and get some of our fears decreased.
I mean, this is the Honest Designer show, so by the time this goes out, this will have happened. Either we will have been publicly disgraced, or it goes well.
Yeah.
Publicly disgraced.
We'll be dragged through the streets of Birmingham.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, no.
Is that what happens there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Tom, it is true. It's like that whole thing of you got to it's baby steps, right? Like if you think that you're going to get it right the first time, I think you are kidding yourself, unless you guys have a different opinion on that. But I don't think you can get it right the first time, and I think that's probably what people know in the back of their minds, and is what prevents them from doing it. But the truth of the matter is, you got to take the first step, because the second, third, fourth, and fifth is just so much easier. But it's that first step, isn't it? There's some things I just haven't been able to take that first step. But yeah,
actually, it was this. I was bopping. It was actually in Birmingham when I did my first talk, which was for like an organisation called Glug Birmingham, and that was nerve wracking. But then ever since, I've like done a few more talks, and the thing is, depending on what you're talking about, I've been able to tweak it. I'm like, okay, the thing that I thought was maybe funny didn't get any laughs.
That's what I'm worried about.
So that's getting out. But then you get to know your story a bit better as you're talking about it, because a lot of these people are just talking about their story. which even though it's your story, is hard at the first, but you keep doing it, you keep refining it, and you get to know it better in terms of you being able to communicating it without the ums and the ahs and the forgetting your words. So for me, you know, talking about how I got into calligraphy and stuff like that is part of my story, and I you know, it's starting to become something that I don't even have to think about. But when I first did it, I remember like, oh no, I've missed that bit, or I've jumped that bit. And so, yeah, I think with time, knowing that it's not going to be brilliant the first time or the second time or the third time, but it gets better. So there's sort of like, there's two, you know, those graphs where there's like one line going from bottom to top and one line going from top to bottom. It's all like that. And it you know, the amount of like ums and ahs and how it flows and stuff like that gets less, and the sort of like your confidence then starts to build, and so one ends up at the bottom and the other one ends at the top, but it only comes through just doing it and doing it again. And you have to put yourself into those places, and don't worry about, like, you know, there are some speakers who get asked all the time, but a lot of people have to put their name forward. So a lot of conferences will ask for speakers. So you have to have like a little thing called an elevator pitch, which is just like a really short, you know, who you are and what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but sometimes you just have to go for it. And it is the most terrifying thing you're ever going to do. But you grow through that, you know, that fear and stuff like that. And you just, and you might not be for you. You have to have that realism. You might keep doing it. Actually, this is not for me. But you might find that you are actually, you fall into it. Once you get into the groove, you love it, and people resonate with what you talk about. People are rooting for you. It just doesn't feel like that when you're you know, worrying about it.
I think it's true of anything, right? Like literally anything. Driving, that kind of scared me at first when I didn't know what I was doing and I was all over the road.
Really? Oh, no, mine was the other way around. I was so excited.
You were just confident.
And now you're scared.
Devil on the road. Yeah.
No. Actually, I'm not scared at all. But I'm just saying, like, driving was not, fearful.
I think there's a lot of things that applies to, though. So I'm thinking of the listeners right now.
Well, it's the job interview.
Yeah.
It's pitching your work. It's finding clients.
It's posting on social media, like sharing your work. There's, for us, it's like, it's nothing. There's people where it's like putting a design on Instagram for the first time. It's like, I couldn't possibly, that's terrifying, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like you say, pitching's a big one, Lisa.
It's huge. And I was just thinking, like, what advice have we got for people that each of us have applied to ourselves? I mean, I have to think about this, but that you can say, okay, so you have to do it anyway, even though you're scared. So what did you do to take that first step? Like Ian, what did you do to phone somebody and say, or email them and say, hey, I want to be a speaker, even though you really were petrified? And you, Tom, what made you pick up your phone and start talking into the video, you know, thing? And you, Dustin, I mean, this stuff is like old hand to you, but surely it wasn't always. Like, I don't know.
Of course.
Who would you like to start?
Dustin.
I love the pointing. Feels like it's pointing at me, but it's pointing at everyone. You know, when I think about anything that I've done that's been scary, it's because the pain of not doing it has felt greater than the pain of doing it. So when I first got opportunities to do, my first opportunities were to do workshops and then to do talks. And I felt like, well, if I don't do it, if not now, when, you know? So I think because the pain gave me leverage of what it would be like not to do it. And it was the same with like when I started my shop and started selling products. It was really scary. I was literally expecting people to just mass email me and tell me that I was a fraud and a charlatan. I was like, literally, I'm not even joking. I truly believe that would happen very fast. And
I love how old school you've gone with the insults. You, sir, are a fraud and a charlatan.
You get your pair of gloves off and whack him around the face.
That simply won't do.
That's how I felt. I felt very much afraid of that. And the only reason I was able to do it was because I felt like I need to make money for my family. I'm in a really bad position. So I think whatever you can do to give yourself leverage, and that's going to be a different story of what each person needs to tell themselves.
Yeah.
So fear is your motivator.
Yeah, or I guess, I guess,
that
like,
sounded really
they
bad.
say at the end of
That's
life,
not a bad thing.
they say people regret what they didn't do more than what they did do. So
Exactly.
remind yourself why you would regret it if you didn't do it.
Yeah, no, I get that. How about you, Lisa?
Oh,
Yeah,
she was
that's
the
probably.
sorry, I thought she was the one asking for the tips.
Okay.
I am. But that is definitely my number one driving force. The reason why I put myself into situations that really scare the hell out of me is because I don't want to be. I don't know. I just have this vision like of this 80-year-old woman looking back at my life and thinking, man, I did some exciting stuff. I was scared to death, but it was like really cool, So that's how I want to feel when I'm older. I don't want to feel like, damn, I should have done that, and why didn't I just go and take the dancing class or put my work on Instagram, or I don't know, contact that client that I really wanted to work with. I don't want to feel that, and
That's
I
quite
think
sweet.
that's probably
Even if you bomb,
Yeah.
it's a way better story to tell it be able to tell the story of a life where you bomb constantly than to be like,
Exactly.
oh, they were just a wallflower that just never did anything. I mean, how much awesomer is the story of I did
Yeah.
dance and then everyone laughed at me, and then I tried putting this
Exactly.
out and then everyone told me how horrible. I mean, that's a great story.
I know, and that whole thing of like I'm the kind of person that wants like colorful moments in my life. Like I need stuff like that to go on all the time. So the only way you're going to do that is to create it yourself. And I think it's stepping out of your comfort zone. Whether it's personally or work wise or whatever, spiritually even. All that kind of stuff adds up and makes your life rich. It's like that's what you aim for, surely. Well, this is what I aim for anyway.
I feel motivated. How about
Damn.
you, my
Good.
accomplice for the day?
My faraway colleague. For me, mine probably resonates with probably like half the audience because I'm an introvert and I'm always trying to get rid of or get away from my introvertness. So coming to a conference and not knowing anyone is probably like the worst situation I could put myself in. So a way around that is becoming a speaker or a workshop person, because then your name is on the thing, and there's people who like come up to you and ask questions about your workshop or come ask questions about your talk, or the fact that you have access to like the other speakers, so you can speak to them first, and then
wow.
And so
you're my hero, Ian.
I know that's so. They're going to be like moths to a bloody flame, guys.
So yeah, if you can, and also it really helps to build like a social audience, because then they know you from somewhere else, and then there's more of a chance of them coming to talk to you rather than you having to do the thing that you fear the most, which is just talking to people. Just trying to initiate. It's not the talking to people, it's the initiating a conversation with someone you don't know, which is the thing that sort of cripples you. And so for me, being able to be a speaker, which is also something I used to find really hard, but I think what you can do, rather than just going straight into doing speaking, like short videos like Tom did on Instagram that turns into then doing slightly longer ones on YouTube, has really helped me. Because if you look back at my YouTube, it's even more of a like black and white than it is in my Instagram. But you see, like, I'm really like, welcome to my YouTube, not in a comedy way, but it's just like really awkward. But you see then my latest one, and I know exactly how to speak to camera. I know how to rehearse the words. I know that I now have to have a script, and you get to know yourself a bit better. And like one thing that really I never thought I'd get, like I'm now 40, it's taken this long, is the sound of my own voice and me speak and me on camera. I thought oh, you look so weird and you sound so weird. People must think you sound look weird.
I thought you were saying that to me for a second.
So like listening back, I can listen now to stuff that I'm in without cringing really bad. Oh, I might say something cringy, but
there's no disparity, right?
No, so I think
we all got that.
I can watch a video back and not go, oh, that is just, no. I can say that about like maybe some of the lines I used or the quality, but actually doing that has really helped me in my confidence as an introvert. I still have those the anxiety that introvertness does about having to speak to people. But
it's very interesting. It's like the thing with when you hear yourself talk when you recorded it at first, and you're always like, oh my gosh, do I sound like that? But when you see yourself on video, you're like, is that me? I'm a Quasimodo, and then and then after you see yourself for a while, then you're like, okay, no, I'm not. It's just normal, but I'm not used to seeing myself.
It's so weird, isn't it? And has that gap completely narrowed for all of you? Because it has for me. And it didn't happen over... Really? Because now I'll watch myself and listen to myself and be like, that's exactly what I hear as I'm speaking right now. Yeah, but only because I've heard it so much now. That gap completely just disappeared. But at first I was like, whoa, that's like a different person.
Yeah, I still feel like a moron when I look at myself. It's all those fears are still there.
That's a tad harsh, Lisa.
I'm serious, and I still think that is because I haven't done it anywhere near as much as you guys have.
Yeah, it will be. We've embraced our inner moron.
I think what it is, I compare it to when I first started drinking coffee. I was like, what is this coffee stuff? Everyone keeps drinking it, and I don't like it. But it took me like 21 days of drinking it. And I was like, this just tastes like dirty water.
Yeah.
And it's the same with your voice. And then suddenly your palate changes overnight. And you're like, this is the best drink ever.
But Ian, my question is, if you thought coffee tastes like dirt, why were you like, let's drink this for day after day until I like it? Why don't you just stick with tea?
Well, no, because I can see like people speaking. I could there must be a reason why Aaron Draplin does it all the time. And Chris though from the future and all the people here.
Yeah.
Oh no, but I mean with the coffee though. You said the coffee tastes like dirt, but you kept drinking it every day.
But I wanted to know because there's so many. I wanted to have a hot beverage. I didn't like tea. I didn't like coffee. And I was just like, I really want a hot drink.
I understand that.
Like because people kept going. Actually. Like people were like, oh, I really need coffee, or you go around someone's house and they're like, oh, do you want a tea? In the UK, it's always, do you want a tea or coffee?
Yeah.
And
it's like peer pressure.
It is peer pressure. But I was like, I'm fascinated why. And so I'd do the same with I did the same with tea, but it's all right. It's just not coffee.
So what do you like better, tea or coffee?
Coffee. So
I'm not allowed coffee. The doctor made me
stop drinking I'm worried that's going to happen at some point.
I miss it so dearly.
Tom, I think you definitely don't need coffee.
Thanks, buddy. I'll take it as a compliment.
You're already a hard enough worker and like energetic enough to do a lot of stuff. I'm just going to dissolve
Adderall in water instead.
No. I feel like you already probably need like 3 more hours sleep than you get every night.
Okay, so again, I always want to bring this back to the listeners. Like, what is going to help them the most? Because I think we're all agreed, you should grab life by the horns and not be a hermit. Easier said than done, admittedly, but I think all of the best stuff that's happened to us in life and career-wise has come from us like taking some kind of leap of faith, right? Which inherently is linked to going outside your comfort zone, like doing this podcast, for example. That was 100%. Scary. We're about to hit 1 million downloads. Boom.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy. That never would have happened.
They're all just my mum.
Yeah, mine. I think definitely between the 2 mums, they account for a good 500,000. So if you're out there, we appreciate you too.
Yeah.
Mrs. Barnard representing.
Bernard.
So yeah, I think Bernard. So yeah, I think like definitely that, just kind of taking the leap. I think doing it for personal development would probably be my biggest angle. Like, yes, regret. I'm completely with you guys on that, but I find it quite addictive to see the results because they're so tangible. It's like literally, it's like training a hamster, right? It's like every time you do something that scares you and then you do it, you feel proud, you feel like you've grown and you become like a better person. And so then you do it again and again and again. And every time the same thing keeps happening.
Yeah.
And what happens is you start training your brain because, I mean, I used to be a real scaredy cat. So what happens is you start training your brain to realize that doing scary things work out great in some ways, in some way or another.
That is scary.
It is pretty scary looking, Dustin.
Dustin's got a weird cat for everyone listening. One of his many props. Mr. Megorian's Wonder Emporium.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you're basically training your brain to tell you that doing scary things are actually going to be beneficial for you. So it's like that whole, you say your world is this small when you're first starting out, and by the end of like you constantly stepping out of your comfort zone, the world gets bigger and bigger, and your opportunities get bigger and bigger, and exposure and all those kinds of things. So yeah, I mean, I literally wouldn't be sitting here like experiencing the career that I have for if it wasn't for me taking scary steps. And I'm sure all of you can say exactly the same thing. And yeah, so it's like it's a no-brainer, but it's really weird that our brain still tells us that it's a bad thing initially.
I'll add a negative spin to that because that's what I do. It's
you
actually
empty that glass that's half full.
It sounds negative, but I feel like it's a really big positive because it helps me a tremendous amount. I remember when Scotty Russell, who was a guest a couple episodes back, he coached me on speaking, and he recommended a book. And I'm sorry, I actually can't remember the book off the top of my head. But in the book, the person talked about the fact that he showed a picture of someone on stage, and this applies to anything in your life. But he showed someone looking at their cell phone while the person on stage was talking. And he said, this is what you're competing with. And it just kind of brings about the idea that think about how often someone is talking on a stage and how often you stop paying attention. Think about when you go to a concert, you stop paying attention sometimes. When a stand-up comic is live, you stop paying attention sometimes. And when someone's not around you, I mean, you barely think of them. Like, I can't even name off people's failures because and I'm sure you guys can't either because you care so little about other people's failures. I guess the point is that it's very freeing when we realize people aren't hanging out thinking about our successes and failures. Yeah. If you fail or things go bad, no one cares. They're going to go have their smoothie or whatever. They're continue on with what they're doing. And it's very freeing when you realize when you go up on a stage that, people are not going to all be paying attention. They're going to be checking their phones because that's what people do, not because I'm bad. But that's what human beings do, right? So it's empowering when you realize no one cares.
I completely agree. I think it's different at school, and I think I was too scared to like put myself out there to that extent with speaking or whatever at school. But I saw it happen with other people. In the adult world, it's like, oh, there's technical issues. Let's say something went wrong tomorrow for us, and people would like feel bad for us, and we'd sort it out, and it would be fine. At school, it would be like, that's the most hilarious thing in the world. You got like hundreds of people like laughing and ripping you a new one. And again, I didn't experience this myself, but I saw it firsthand. Yeah. They'd literally be like ridiculing this person. And then not only that, but if it was bad enough, it would stick with them for like the next 7 years of their life until they graduated.
That's so true. Horrible.
Because kids are mean, right? And so I don't know if maybe that's what's inside some people's heads, where they've got that thing of like, well, if I was different or I put myself out there or did something brave or messed up, I'd be ridiculed for years. Whereas that's not how generally the adult world works.
Right.
No, people actually surprisingly don't give a damn. To a large extent, they actually, if you stuff up, it's not going to be a big deal in their calendar. I can tell you that.
And they feel that you have to think they feel the same way, or they feel like I never do what Tom's doing tomorrow, and say, they're like, there's a problem. It's like, that could be me. So I think they sympathise with you. I've got a good analogy for people because I love it. Helps
real life analogy, guys.
I use analogies because my brain needs that pictorial way of understanding the concept. And so, okay, say I've never done it, but say you're skydiving. You go up in the plane. You're sitting there with a few other people. And then you come to jump out the plane. You've seen someone else do it before, but you're standing on the edge.
Yes.
How would you feel if you then didn't do it and come back and laid back down and everyone else had done it?
And they're going, I can tell you exactly how.
Have you done it?
Well, my friend was nearly in that position. But yes, I have skydived, and it's exactly that. They give you 2 loops, and if you don't go out because you're too scared, you've lost out, and you've paid all that money and you've lost your turn. And it's a good analogy because life is exactly like that.
Yeah, but if you get down to the bottom, what do you then regret not jumping? But also, say like the first time you jump out of the aeroplane, it's like 100%. That's the fear factor. You don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
You can't experience it in anything else but jumping out of a plane.
Yes.
But when you come back up again and do another turn, another day or the same day, it's never going to be at 100% of like the fear, is it? It's going to be, it might be only just a few percent. It might be like 97%, but that fear reduces every time you go back up there.
Definitely. And the word is...
Yeah.
Just going on that analogy, it's like when you successfully jump and your chute opens so you don't splat to the ground, every single person that finishes, the first thing they say, can I go again? Because it's that whole thing of like, wow, this was amazing.
It's just like adrenaline.
Isn't that true for... Yeah, exactly. Isn't that true for the stuff that's happening in our lives? We're like, oh my word, that worked out. This is awesome. Okay, so where's the next challenge kind of thing, you know? Because
that's
going
interesting
back to the thing of how
is anything worth it that doesn't feel like that? Like if anything is handed to us, if anything is handed to us, we can't really be like, look what I accomplished, or we don't even get a rush from it at all. It would be like if someone said, you have such a cute dog, and then I took credit for it. Oh, thank you for complimenting my cute dog. Well, I didn't make the dog cute. What am I saying thank you for? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so anything worthwhile I think that's what you're saying, Dustin. Anything worthwhile you're experiencing is going to be scary, I think, initially, probably.
Yeah.
You know?
I proactively look for the stuff that scares me most because it's a good indicator of what I should be doing.
That's true. Sure, you're braver than me, Tom.
I
don't know if I
trying,
can do that.
but like it's not comfortable, and it has to be a real proactive thing because it's not going to happen by itself. And I think, unlike the skydiving analogy, you can do baby steps, right? Because I'm terrified of heights. For me, skydiving is nearly impossible. I hope as I build up my tolerance to doing scary things, I will do it because it sounds amazing, and even my mum's done it. So
cool.
if she can do it, that's like motivation enough. Like, can't be outdone by like my 60-year-old mum. I love the idea of baby steps. Like for the workshop tomorrow, that literally has been years of like putting out little videos on Instagram, doing this podcast, doing live webinars, like talking to the team, all that kind of stuff. It's all been gradually building. And whatever it is, like I just want people to lean into stuff more. And when I've been helping a few creatives recently, I'm becoming really obsessed with the idea of like being brave enough to lean into what you really want to do. So I'm thinking of this guy, Paul Hallam, who's a fantastic illustrator. You guys might have seen his stuff on Instagram.
No, he's brilliant.
His icon is a drawing he did of himself.
And we were helping him with that recently, and he nailed it. Right? It looks amazing. Really cool guy. And for the longest time, I think he did the classic thing of not pinning down a style or a focus, and he was putting out just all kinds of general illustration. And after a few talks, we were really trying to encourage him as a community to like own the fact he wanted to be a kid's illustrator, like, illustrate for kids' books and that kind of thing. And so now he's done that. And so now like everything from his logo to his bio section to his website to the text and case studies on his website to the stuff he puts out on Instagram. And I think that's going to get him infinitely more traction because people who are like publishing companies or kids' book authors or whatever his target demographic is comprised of, they're going to see that and be like, this is our guy. We need to use him. But if he'd stayed floating around, but for me, that is a comfort zone thing, right? Yeah, that's a brave thing. That takes bravery. And what I always try and tell people is, you're not going to be stuck in that forever. Is people seem worried that if they lean into what they really want to do creatively, that's going to be the rest of their life. And obviously that's not the case. He might hate it in a year's time and go do something different, and that's fine.
Yeah. But you'll never know that until you try it.
Another way I've thought about it that motivates me is to think about barriers to entry. If you've ever taken a business class, you've heard of barriers to entry are essentially how hard is it to get into the game. So, if you're selling, Photoshop brushes, for instance, the barrier to entry is very low. All you need is a copy of Photoshop and the willingness to learn how to make a Photoshop brush. Whereas if you want to sell canned foods on a national level, the barrier to entry is very high because you need a factory and you need to source ingredients and then you need to get a distribution channel. So whenever you're thinking about something you're scared of doing, I tend to think to myself, well, once I do this, say for instance, building an email list was something I want to do. Once I do this, I might screw it up and make some people angry because I messed it up, but then all of a sudden I know how to do it. That's a barrier to entry. It just made it a little harder for the person that hasn't done it yet to catch up with me. And then you keep adding those little wins up, and eventually there's such a high barrier to entry that someone's like, well, he's got a big email list. He's done all these talks. He's sold all these products. He's done all these things. And the barrier to entry has gotten higher and higher. So I think it can help to think of it as I don't have something to lose. Either way, I gain the advantage in terms of building my barrier to entry to compete with me in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
That's great. And it makes complete sense. And it doesn't have to be business. Like, you can do that in terms of your skills, because we all have people that we idolize creatively.
Absolutely.
And you look at them and you think, oh man. And it could just be actually that you stuck at it and really committed. So some novice is looking and thinking, wow, they've got 25 years experience and all these gigantic clients and all this like respect in the industry. And that's a barrier to entry.
Yeah.
And that's not to like shut anyone else out, but that is to, celebrate your success. And that only comes from like committing. I think being lukewarm just doesn't really work.
Well, if you look at Ian's Instagram feed, one time I tried scrolling through that sucker. I mean, if you scroll through that, it must be like a mile long of a feed if you were able to roll it out on the ground. I mean, it took forever. It had to load like 30 times. It was just insane. That is literally like almost like a digitally measurable barrier because it's so tall. You're like, well, that's how long it took. And you can see that it started out not so great. And it got really, really insanely good. You're like, okay, literally you can measure how tall that barrier is right there.
Do you remember when we had Dina on recently and she was saying something similar and she's like, and if someone wants to come for me, then they've got like 1,000 posts to catch me up on. And by the time they've got there, I already would have moved so far ahead. They're never going to catch me because I'm going to keep going.
Mm. Yeah. Yep, 100%. And the same thing applies for like if you're freelancing as a graphic designer or illustrator. If you don't put yourself out there by, seeking the clients that you want to work for, and you constantly think, well, that agency has got, the top end clients, they actually somehow got them through crossing some kind of barrier. And you're always going to think that you're less than if you don't actually pursue that and try and create your own barrier of entry, so to speak.
And it's funny because sometimes the barrier is as simple as sending an email.
It is. That's the thing. Isn't that the weirdest thing? Like we create these like enormous monsters in our mind about something that we're so scared of, and then when we actually do it, we realize, well, that was a lot easier than I thought. And you think, well, why haven't I done it like yesterday or a year ago or 5 years ago? But yeah, it's a weird thing.
What a book I read, which actually Dusty read, then I read, which was Atomic Habits, and it talks about how when you're first doing something, you need to do it enough times so it then becomes an automatic reaction rather than you having to think about it. Yeah. And then that helps the process miles. So if you're getting up to do something on stage for a talk, like I was saying earlier, that the more you rehearse it and it becomes automatic, the easier it then becomes to be more natural. And that can be with anything, like with regularly posting. If you're doing it daily, that's something to do and it's, just part of what you're doing. You don't have to even think about it. But if you're doing it sporadically or not doing it regularly enough, it just becomes a chore. And you're constantly thinking about it and it's quite hard work.
So true.
And also that leap. I mean, I think because I think I might suffer from this issue of I always, if I want to achieve something, I'm always looking at the big mountain, and I want to go from 0 to hero, like in one step. But and that's unachievable. It's that whole thing of you got to actually break it down to small, into small tasks of how am I going to get there, like you did, Tom. I mean, you literally like did like one thing after the other that led to the next, and now you're sitting here about to do your talk.
I'm putting this on record, not in an arrogant way, but in hopefully an
ambitious way. We can always cut
it out. In I don't know, like 10 years time, I want to be getting, I will be getting flown around the world to go and get paid good money to go and speak publicly, to
Love
very
it.
big audiences. But I'm only going to do
Nice.
that by going and do it like a few hundred times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd do it for some free food.
Yeah, I'm
I'll do it
loving
for a
free
free
food
flight
at
and a
the
And
hotel
free
room.
beer.
Just for the free
A
travel.
hotel room with
I mean,
pink
yeah, just for
lights.
this cozy little thing we've got going on now for anyone watching on YouTube. Ian and I having a little embrace under the purple light.
I would literally pay to be in between that little sandwich you guys got going on there.
I think a
Between
lot
those
of
two
people would,
slices of
Dustin.
bread.
Yeah, it's a tasty
A
sandwich.
lot of bromance going on this week.
Can I tell you my really lame? On the drive up, I was trying to think of like different like light-hearted ways to open the speech. And can I tell
Let's
you
hear it.
now? This is going to be really embarrassing going out on air because I don't think I am going to say this. But I was going to say like, in the run up to Birmingham Design Festival, I've been watching a lot of Peaky Blinders, and so I can confirm that I've still got absolutely no idea what an authentic Brummie accent sounds like.
You see, none of us are English, so
Yeah, most
Well,
of
I
that
am.
makes sense to me.
Okay, not a giggle from Ian, so that's not making it in.
It might be too high on my level.
It's a series where they're known for doing very bad Birmingham accents, the actors.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh.
I thought they were Cockneys.
No.
Oh, that's
right.
why I didn't get the joke. I haven't watched it.
Okay, right.
So
That's not getting used.
you,
So
have
that's
to,
out.
you have to
That's a-
preamble that by saying, has anyone seen this? If no one puts their hand up,
Yeah,
you know
but
it's not going
Anyone
to
seen
then
it?
you're
No.
like, oh, never
Okay,
mind.
so workshop.
Yeah.
Right, I won't be using that.
Something I found that had helped me with my talking again, like Scotty had kind of coached me on this, is I start my talks now with a story that I was able to make into an analogy about when I flew and got trapped in the toilet on the airplane.
I don't think you told us this.
What?
I don't think you've told us this one.
Well, I did it in front of people. I thought it was funny. I also thought it was really embarrassing, and maybe it was totally inappropriate to share in front of a big audience. And I did it, and it always got laughs. And I have people come up to me like, even now, they're like, "Oh my gosh, like I heard your story, and I love your toilet story." It turned out to be a real winner. But the great part about it is that by putting myself out there in the most embarrassing way possible before anyone else could, it's like, okay, well, that's out of
Yeah.
the way now. Anything I say or anything that happens cannot be as bad as what I just self-admitted.
Yeah.
You
I
Eminem
like
them
that.
in 8 Mile.
There you go.
I love it. Yeah, Scotty's been
That
helping
is
me
it.
as well. He sent me some good resources for the speech. So all the love on this show for Scotty,
For sure.
not just because he is a burly, good-looking man.
No.
Those
Nice.
arms are
Oh.
massive.
They're like, yeah, just
The
mahogany
pythons.
logs, aren't they?
Even both of ours stuck together wouldn't make his.
But for real, if you want to see good public speaking, find one of his videos of one of his talks, or I'm sure there's content on his site about it because he is a great coach. He has great information about doing talks, and his
Shout out
talks
to
are great.
Scotty.
But I think for people, I think public speaking is still quite far off. And I think, start just with like Instagram stories and putting yourself on there. Because I know for that, some people, feel, that's just talking to a 15-second clip.
Yep.
But like even, I know what you could do. Here's the thing is like send one of us a video message just with a question or something,
Mhm.
Because we're rooting for you. We want you to do this. So, if you muck it up, we're not going to think any less.
I've had that where people do like mess up their speech and stuff and get really embarrassed and resend it.
I'm impressed at just how good people are at speaking because like I did one talking about I'll sign up for my workshop. I had to record it like 10 times because I couldn't get my words out.
Yeah, I had one of my community members, Susie, recently do this, and I actually talked her into like putting out a first video, being like, "Here's the person behind the account," and I'm really nervous and that kind of stuff. And she was telling me how she was horrendous. She was like some like drama graduate. She was super good at it, like way better than I was at the start. And in all the messages, she was like, "Yeah, I really suck at this. Like, I've got imposter syndrome." And then camera goes on her. She's like, "The night was upon us." Like, really started like projecting out. I was like, "Damn, Susie."
You're like,
And no, the thing is, you get someone like that that says, "I'm not good at this," and they really are. And you're like, "I think I'm good at this," and now I realise I'm not.
Yeah. That old delusion.
But yeah, just little. I think
Okay.
the baby steps is definitely, like it was,
All right, let's. This is going to be a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to put us all on the spot. can we all list like a series of events that grow in magnitude to something positive from very humble beginnings that apply to like the creative audience? So I will demonstrate what I mean. How about you start really scared to put yourself out there, share your face or anything like that. So the next step after that is you share an Instagram post that gives like a few personal details about you, but doesn't share you. You know, here's my name, here's some hobbies, like comment in the comment section if you relate or want to share something about yourself. And then next time you do that, but you put your face in it in a photo. And then next time you do it, you put a video and you say hi that way. And then you start doing video chats with people in the DMs and that kind of stuff, but only people you're really comfortable with. And then you start doing it with strangers and video chatting with them. And then you build to doing an Instagram live or a Facebook live, and you start putting your work out there and talking and building community that way. And then maybe you start doing webinars like Dustin and that kind of thing. And then maybe you start doing speaking or workshops and that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So just like, it can be unbelievably small baby steps. Have you guys got anything in mind? Like it could be pitching, you know, going from like not being able to do it at all to being able to like
our own experience, you talking about?
Or hypothetical. But yeah, own experience is good.
So my own experience in started with going to like network meetings, meeting other designers and stuff like that, at like just local coffee shops. You know, I'd organise it because there wasn't one locally.
You did that.
And then so not only have you got the thing about talking to other people, you've got the fact that will anyone turn up?
Exactly.
Oh.
But
that's probably terrifying for most people.
It was fine for the first couple, and then it only ended up being me and one other person. So, but that was like the first baby step of just like talking to other designers. And then it was like YouTube and Instagram stuff. And then it was speaking at Birmingham. Doing a workshop actually before speaking. Did a workshop at Creative South, and that was the first thing I'd ever done. Luckily, I had Bob Ewing with me, sidekick, and he's
nice.
He's helped me. So, you know, doing a joint one. So I made sure it was a joint one. So if you're doing a workshop, do it with someone else who's maybe done one before. So then you're
that's
like,
why I'm doing this.
Yeah. So you're riffing off someone else. So that's like even more baby step than doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Then I've done a few workshops myself, and then I got asked to do one in Birmingham a few years ago, an actual talk, and then I did another couple of talks, and then I got to do a talk at an Apple store. So I would never have, if you'd spoken to me as like because I'm quite old, a 30-year-old, I'd be like, no, never doing speaking.
I love that. So it started with you having a coffee date with someone, basically.
Or yeah, and me just like doing a Facebook group, making a Facebook group for like a creative meetup.
Yeah.
And, you know, hoping that a few people turn up. And then I like have the thing of just speaking to those people that turn up.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, I don't really know them. Because
that's brilliant.
So
I feel like you're the poster boy for introverts right now.
It just I'm always fighting it. It never like completely goes away.
Yeah.
So like tonight there will be that. I'm quite glad I'm going with you actually, because it's just like it's that fact that you just got I can talk about stuff for ages, but it's just the initial like hello
starting.
Or if there's a group is even worse.
Breaking into it.
Into a group.
I don't like that either though. And I can be introverted too, but I tilt a little bit more extroverted, I think.
Yeah.
And all I need is like one in. So any networking event, if I like vaguely know one person and then they can like introduce me to one other, then I'm away and then I can run with it.
When I first, this is about events. So I started by seeing the value of doing webinars in, I think, Tim Ferriss' book. And then I watched webinars, and then I worked for someone where they did webinars. And then I started my business and realized to grow it, I could do some webinars. And then I started charging for some of the webinars. And then I started partnering with other people and doing the live webinars and charging with the other person on the webinar. And that's eventually led to now we're doing a live event in Portland. That's a day live event, like a mini, day conference. And that really directly came because we were able to kind of, test it, play with the idea and then we were able to talk to the people that had came to the webinar and say, would you come to a live event? And I would have never thought I would do that. That would be crazy for me.
And I love that, right? And you should feel so proud of that. But even the step of reading the Tim Ferriss book, right? It might seem like, oh, it's just a book. But how many people, I would argue the majority, are like, no, I'm going to stay in my lane. I read these types of books. I'm not gonna explore that kind of book.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
How about you, Lisa?
Well, actually, my starting to show my art to the world was kind of like that. The first time I ever did it was I was making jewelry at the time, and we had a craft, like a craft market, and I decided to take 3 of my paintings along. I actually thought I was going to vomit. And it's the weirdest thing. I mean, obviously my family, they always say, oh, your stuff's so good, whatever. But it's not the same when you're actually showing it to total strangers. So I think I was mute, like literally didn't say a word for 3 days of that market because every time somebody looks at my paintings, I don't know, I wanted to die.
Throw up on
It's just
them.
the weirdest thing. Yeah, exactly. And a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in ages came along, to have a look at the show and everything. And he just said to me, I don't think I've ever seen you like this. You look like you're a mixture of like you want to throw up or you want to, you're not saying anything or whatever. Anyway, so that was the biggest like fear step. Then it just quickly evolved. When I say quickly, over a couple of years, then I opened an Etsy store and I started doing stuff there, and then I had my own website, and over a couple of years before I knew it, I was making my first creative market product, and here we are today.
Would you
I love it.
Something I feel like I'm noticing in these stories, but can you confirm for me? Did you guys all feel like when you did these things that after each step of the process, you said, oh, actually thinking about doing it was the worst part?
I stole this whole thing of like confidence lies the other side of fear. I was trying to think, where the hell did I get that? It's from Will Smith. And he actually talked about this in his vlog after skydiving. And he was saying the fear is the entire build-up phase. And he said the moment you jump out of the plane, every molecule of fear fades away and gets replaced with like elation. And so the build up is horrible. It's like another form of imposter syndrome or all the mental shit which we deal with as creatives.
And you know what the frightening thing is, for me at least, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can say the same, is that you could literally be in that fear phase about this particular thing that you really want to try but you're too scared for years and years and years. And it can be so debilitating and crippling. I mean, you could eventually end up with a whole lot of like psychological issues actually around it. But the point is that it can really cripple you, and as you said, Tom, the other side of that is it can literally change your life to something more positive.
Well, and I think the thing is like sometimes I'll think about things I did that were scary, but I did them. For instance, starting that business that changed my life, starting Retro Supply. And that was really because I was just really scared because I needed to make money because of my daughter on the way, right? And sometimes I think back and think, what if that day, or like, what if like when I first found out we were having a baby, what if I never occurred to me to do that, to start that shop? Or what if when it did occur to me, I didn't do it? And then, because it's like all these decisions happen in like what like a fraction of a second, right? Your brain kind of flicks and you go, okay, I'm going to start a shop. And then maybe you do it. And I think, what if like someone right now, like my little garden angel or something was like, let me show you what would have happened if you'd just done that. And I hadn't done it. And if I hadn't done it, I would have been heartbroken. I'd be like, oh my gosh, look at everything I missed out on because of that. It's actually mortifying, shattering to like realize what you might miss out on if you don't do things.
Sliding doors, my friend. Something I keep trying to advocate for people is speed, because for me that kind of
Tom, this is a family friendly show.
Not anymore.
Tom, that's
This
like
is
number
the
3 for you in this episode.
I know. Let me just take my foot out of my mouth, guys.
While your foot is in your mouth, I was watching a program the other day. We were talking about, because it's this World War stuff. Is the official anniversary of D-Day.
Yeah.
And they were showing the emergency, not the emergency rations, and they had the emergency rations.
Yeah.
And all it was chocolate and speed.
Really?
Yeah, chocolate laced with speed.
Oh my god!
But this was like
best snack
when
ever.
you were in the dire straits of
dying.
enemy territory and you had nothing.
Yeah.
And
chocolate and speed.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that. That is a good
a
fact.
little fact.
So by speed, I meant
Non-drug related.
non-drug related. I meant pace. Yeah, this is something I'm trying to push on people because I keep nearly not doing stuff, and there's stuff that I obviously don't do, and it sits on the to-do list, but that really bugs me, and so I keep trying to execute on stuff ridiculously quickly because that's the only way I know I'm going to do it. So there's been a few times recently, like setting up my website and personal newsletter, setting up my Patreon, doing that stuff. I actually started writing a thing on my to-do list being like, must get to that sometime in the next 2 weeks. And rather than saving it, I thought, if I do that, I'm never going to do it. So I put my phone down and I spent the next hour and I just did it in an hour. So I built my whole website, connected up a newsletter, did all that in an hour and 8 minutes. And Patreon was like hour and a half or something like that. And the point is, it doesn't have to be perfect, but like we've said, it's baby steps. And so I'm such a believer in that these days, like just taking that first step, even if you just rush something out, because the regret of it just sitting on some to-do list gathering dust, or even just sitting up in your head, like that is the equivalent of you being on the ground with smiling friends all around you with an unopened parachute on your back.
Yeah.
And actually, if you don't take a step, you're actually taking a step backwards from where you want to be.
God, that sounds really
That's true.
Because,
terrifying.
you say you've got here's your goal, your goal of wanting to do public speaking on an international level. And obviously there's lots of steps making up to it, but every time you don't take a step, think of it as like you're taking a step backwards. And so that then, rather than you just stay, because you're not getting anywhere closer and actually you're getting further away because you're not actually putting those steps in place.
Yeah.
So, and if you're thinking about speed, you're going backwards. So think, okay, if I don't do this, it's actually, I'm going backwards. So you want to try it. And it's actually sometimes thinking like that, it's like you get into a mental block and like, oh no, you're kicking yourself. But just think about,
I think, what it is as well, is that if you find yourself negotiating with yourself, then I think you are procrastinating and you shouldn't actually even think about it. You should just do it. It's that whole thing of like, finding out, like, I mean, if you're going to sit and, for example, Tom, you could have sat there and gone, okay, well, what's the best website platform? Should I investigate that one over that
exactly.
one over that?
And you know what? I did it with Squarespace. I fucking hated it. It was not nice to work with. I thought Squarespace was better than it was. Yeah, we're not going to get sponsored with them on the back of that comment.
See, I like it.
Yeah, a lot of people like it. I was moving it around and I just like, God, I really don't like the interface. It's not very nice, but did it anyway. So I agree, Lisa.
You can't negotiate otherwise, and also you can't pretend to be finding out details about it. You just got to do it.
There's always a million reasons not to do stuff. I mean, I think I might just sit next to Ian for every episode because we've never heard so much out of him. I think purely because it would be so awkward if this was an episode where you say like two things, but I'm sat right next to you. So Ian's been like the most vocal.
Yeah. Well, no, the thing is, you're constant. Through in every episode, you're a constant amount of like Tom, like 25-30%. And it's weird. And it's weird when like Lisa has an episode where she struggles to, if it's something that she doesn't know so much about, it seems really, really quiet when Lisa isn't able to interject. And Dustin's another sort of like regular. Whereas I suppose for me, it's just sometimes if I've got a lot of experience in a certain area and I can recall it quickly, then it comes out. But sometimes it takes me a while for my brain to. Your brains are obviously like quicker than mine, unless it's right.
That. I think mine's
thing is,
dissolved.
Like we're talking about something that's really relevant to us, which is happening at the moment.
Yeah,
will be in the next day, and so those feelings are quite quite surface level.
I think the two of you need to get a room.
So we have got a room.
We've got one, and we've already moved on to bed stage, so don't worry about that.
I think I'm quite hungry as well.
I'm really hungry, and I will
Maybe some
I need to go in a
strawberries
sec.
dipped in chocolate.
Yeah, we get some room service champagne. Honestly, I know the majority of people listen to the show, not watch it. Like, please pop over to the YouTube just to see what we're talking about. It is ridiculous. Like, this light behind us, we look like we're in the purple light district. It's
guys,
ludicrous.
That room
We're just cuddling
looks
up.
shady.
It does.
It's just missing some pumping music, isn't it?
As this is the Honest Designers show, we've got a bit of an announcement.
There's not even a window. What's going on in there that there can't be a window?
Ian, do you mind possibly, for everyone watching the video, and I'm going to describe what's happening for the listeners. We've got this blind with like a bit of natural light sticking through the top. Turns out that natural light is an actual light, and it's just a wall. So look at that.
It's just wall.
Like, we went earlier like, oh cool, we get a view, and we lifted it up, and it's just a wall.
You know what? I don't believe there's a conference going on.
It's just a dirty
are in
weekend.
Hotel room. I don't know what's going on. It's shady. It's purple in there.
We'll have to send some photos for evidence.
Oh no, don't photograph it. That just adds to the scandal. So anyway, back to my selfish mention. But a recent thing for me is I've been doing this show for a little while where I'm trying to help. Ironically, I was trying to split off a little bit and be like, we always talk about design. I'm just going to help general entrepreneurs. But then so many of my audience are designers. I just keep getting questions about creative stuff as well. But it's been fun. It's called The Honest Entrepreneur. And my recent thing with that podcast is I've gone daily. And that freaked me out because I'm like, suddenly I'm doing a Q&A format every single day.
Is this 7 days a week?
7 days a week. And so
That's
the
insane.
point I was going to make is immediately there were objections like, won't be able to keep up with that. I'm going on holiday soon. So what happens then? All these things started bouncing around my head, like why it just wouldn't work. But then I thought, screw it, I'm just going to do it. And you just figure out a way. It's like, I mean, obviously nowhere near the same league, but it's like my brother just had a baby. He's not going to like not figure that out. He's not going to be like, nah, not for me. Like, you know, he's got a baby. He has to figure out how to raise it. Like, and the same with anything you put out.
Yeah. Just make it work.
Yeah. This is in like 4 weeks' time where I'm like, let's do an episode on like burnout and despair and why daily shows become daily torture.
The thing is that I think, because the thing is you can do daily things, but if you're coming up with the content all yourself, then it's a struggle because you're doing like a question and answer thing where people are, I suppose,
giving you the content.
Yeah, giving you the content.
True.
So you're just responding to them.
Mm-hmm.
That seems much more easier to. It still seems like a lot of work, but you know, it's manageable.
But daily commitment.
No, it's not. I've got systems. I only film once a week still. I have a team that then split it up and publish it and that kind of thing.
That's what I need.
Yeah, we all need a team.
I also need a team.
I would love to know as well, like tag us up on, in fact, this is something I've just started doing on the personal show. I really want to push the Scotty Russell thing he does on his podcast. And I really want people to screenshot it when they're listening to the podcast, when they're listening to the show, and then like put it on social media so we can reshare it. Because that makes me so happy when people are like, oh, I'm in the gym, like listening to the Honest Designers or whatever.
If we had a budget on a Virgin Radio in the UK, they do like paying people to get more listeners. Or they like randomly choose like £1 or £5. Like someone from a car dealership retunes all the radios to the station, and they're like, "Oh, let's give him, £7."
What? That's
and
so
I was
cool.
like, if we had a budget, we could get people to like, get other people to listen.
Yeah. So if you go and convince a million people to tune their little podcast dials into the Honest Designer show, we will give you £7. Guaranteed.
That's from Tom's pocket.
And that's marketing. Oh, all right, let's split that. Come on, guys. All right, well, I definitely don't need to go and finish preparing the presentation, which I've definitely done for tomorrow. So on that note,
and I'm hungry.
And Ian's hungry. You know, I've got to go get my date for the evening fed. So yeah, thanks so much for tuning in as always, guys.
Yes,
it's lovely to see you, Lisa and Dustin. I know you're jealous. You're just pining away. You just
Yeah.
want to be part of the fun over here.
Yeah, we want to be part of the cool gang.
Yeah, well,
One day.
we'll consider letting you in. You need to learn the secret handshake.
At passport control.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next time. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.